if they have all of that in IRA money at the time of their death, that is a tax bomb that is about to explode on their kids. Next up, it's Janine from Little Rock. My spouse and I, 50 and 48, earn $250,000 a year and have $4.75 million. We have 2 kids. I don't see us spending more than we currently do, about $125,000 a year, except when the kids go to college. When can I quit working? Well,
the ever eternal question.
50 and 48, we're still pretty young.
Yeah.
We've got a pretty nice nest egg, though.
Yes.
Congratulations to you, $4.75 million. The question again becomes, Janine, how are you going to produce the income you want to retire on?
Yeah, there is a lot there, Scott, that we have to kind of look at. First of all, Janine doesn't say exactly where this $4.75 million is, but we're going to assume that it's in a qualified account. If it's in a qualified account, then even if it is with a current employer, you cannot get to that money without a qualifying event, meaning that you quit or what have you, and you can actually draw without penalty at 55 from an employer plan. If it's in an IRA, it's 59.5. Why they did that, I don't have any idea, but that's what I hesitate to call it the wisdom of Congress or what have you, but that's how the laws came down. So in terms of when you can quit, it's when you can access that money is a big deal. Now, I think you also have to know, what kind of income do you want to retire on? Do you want to retire on the $125,000 a year that you're currently living on? If that's the case, then you do some simple math, figure out your Social Security. At $125,000 a year in income, that's a very small withdrawal rate from that $4.75 million. So I think it's very sustainable.
Yeah, about 2.6%. That's where the withdrawal rate is. So it is very sustainable. Now that is a net number. We're assuming that you want to spend $125,000. So taxes would mean you'd likely need to withdraw more. And, to John's point, it depends on the types of accounts you have in terms of the taxation. And then inflation is a big key here too, because Janine, you're saying you want to live on about $125,000 because that's what you're living on now, especially if you're going to retire at 50 and 48 or anywhere close to that. You're going to have a long time frame of needing to raise that income. Your $125,000 is not going to buy the same amount that it does now in the future. So you have to have some growth component to your assets so that you're able to increase that income. And then the other question I would have here, because she does say they're only spending or living on about $125,000 a year, except when the kids go to college. How are you paying for college? Do you have outside assets in addition to the $4.75 million to pay for college, or are you cash flowing the college? Is the $4.75 going to be there, or is it going to be more when the kids are out of college? And that's part of the planning process too.
Yeah, I think that, theoretically we could say that maybe she needs to work until the kids are out of college if they're going to supplement their expenses, the college expenses, with her income.
Right.
I think that's the pivot factor there. Even if you retire at age 55, though, that is 7 years down the road. If you think about how compound interest works, that $4.75 million could be $6, $7, $8 million by the time you get to that magic age of 55. So that's a consideration as well. I think, Scott, you could also, they could also stop if the spouse, if that spouse continues to work, because we don't know what the stream of income is coming from either of the spouses, but that is a possibility as well.
Yeah, she doesn't mention when can we retire. She says,
that's right. When can I retire?
That probably could happen sooner rather than later if your spouse is going to continue to work. But that's a big piece of this too. We make light of that. But do you want to retire at the same time as your spouse, or are you just looking to get out of the workforce?
Well, and I think this brings up something that is really interesting here, is that, if all of your money is in your qualified plan, that's great for retirement, but it boxes you in on everything else.
Yeah.
It really does for the pre-tax penalties and things of that, the pre-retirement penalties and things of that nature. That's a real problem. The other thing that I think is really at play here is estate planning.
Yep.
I think that depending on where this money is, they could have potentially, and depending on how the election goes, they could potentially have an estate tax problem at some point in time in the future.
Yeah, that estate tax exclusion is very high right now. It's in the neighborhood of 27, 28 million, isn't it? 13. It's 13 and a half, I think, per spouse here. So when we say estate tax exclusion, basically if your estate is under $28 million when you pass, you don't have to worry about paying estate taxes. But that is only in effect through the end of 2025. And if there's no change or no new legislation that changes it, that's going to significantly lower and could be even lower because it has been as low as $1 million in the past. I don't think it's ever going to go that low. But if you think about this 4.75 and having a pretty, I would say, low level of income at you don't think of 125,000 as low, but compared to the 4.75 million, it's not a lot that's going to be pulled out of that portfolio. So you could really be looking at in 10 or 15 years, they could have 7 million, 6 million, $5.5 million. And what is that estate tax looking like then? So some estate planning, some forward-looking estate planning is big there. And then I think about, to your point, if most of this is in a qualified plan, I think it would be difficult at ages 50 and 48 to accumulate that much money in a qualified plan because you can only get so much in it, but it could be close. If they have all of that in IRA money at the time of their death, that is a tax bomb that is about to explode on their kids.
Yeah, planning is more money, more problems. You've got to have people come together and look at estate, look at tax, look at retirement income, look at college education. All of those things are just ripe for work with a financial advisor. I think that clearly is something that the more you have, the more things there are to say grace over. But that is not to say if you're listening to this show and you don't have a lot of money, that is not to say that you don't need to work with a financial advisor. The issues are just more straightforward and less complex. So, but the help is still necessary. Scott, we were talking about the estate planning thing. I think it is very important to note that there is a sunset of the Trump tax cuts that were passed in 2017 that happens at the end of 2025, and then it just reverts back. But I think that it is a consequential election depending upon who is in office at that particular point in time, how low that estate tax issue actually gets driven and many people think, oh, I don't have an estate tax problem. Well, you might if you understand what all is included in your estate.
I think about what you said too about even if you don't have a lot of money, this is some things that you need to consider the planning process. It's always a lot of money to you, right? And we think that way at Gen Wealth. We work with people who have $4 million, we work with people who have $400,000, and still a retirement income plan is important, and estate planning is important in both cases.